Hey, my ASL nerds, players, and collectors. This is Neil from the Academy, and for you today, I have a special presentation of the ASL Counter Jamboree. What we're going to do is we're going to look at all 7 manufacturers of ASL counters from Multiband Publishing, which is going to be what I call the gold standard for this. Advancing Fire, Bounding Fire Productions, Broken Ground Design, Critical Hit, LCP, Lone Canuck, and LFT. Those are the 7 we're going to look at in that order. And let me put up the table that I'm going to use to evaluate these on the nerdy basis and criteria I'm going to look at. Let me put that up right there. We're going to look at these, what do we have? 9 criteria. And I'm calling this the utterly subjective ASL counter rating table. And I call it subjective because that's what it is, other than the last 3, which are objective. You can measure these. ASL counters are a personal taste, whether it's the look of them, how we choose to use them, how we choose to store them, how we choose to clip them, what have you. As I've mentioned in other videos, I'm not crazy about counters. I clip them as needed. I store them because it's a necessity in a system this big. You can't just have counters thrown in baggies. There are just so many different types of units. You have to organize them some way, whether you like doing it or not. But I know some people actually enjoy that, and that's fine. I'm not here to tell you how to enjoy your game. People enjoy doing many different things in this world, including different ways to enjoy ASL. It's not my place to tell you how to enjoy playing ASL in any way, shape, or form, or how to enjoy playing vasl online, or what's the best way to play it of those two. You enjoy the game how you choose to, that's awesome. But what I am good at is analyzing data. I'm an engineering nerd, and I'm going to crunch the numbers for you guys and determine, at least from, in my opinion, my subjective opinion, who makes the best ASL counter. Now, 3 of these things on the list, let me go down the list. I'm going to look at color, resolution, readability, die cut, basically squareness and alignment, smoothness of the sheet release, how easy do they punch out? Do they just fall out, which is bad on one end? Do you have to like cut them out in the X-Acto knife without damaging them and causing delamination, which is the other bad end? Or do they punch out nice and clean without falling out on their own? That's kind of the sweet spot. Trimming, how do they trim up once you trim the corners if you choose to do that? Do they trim clean? Do they cause a little delamination? What have you? Then the last 3 here, thickness and the 1/2 inch size and the 5/8 inch size. Thickness in that determines whether a vehicle can complete bypass movement in a woods or building hex, right? And the other 2, the size, determines how well units stack if you try to pick them up with a set of tweezers. Will you grab them all or just get the thickest one and leave one below when you pick it up? And when you're mixing third-party counters with official ASL multi-man publishing counters, you want to make sure they're all relatively close to the same size. And the way I'm going to do that, let me move the table aside here. I have my handy digital calipers here. I'm going to measure just the X width in the readable text direction. I'm not going to measure the Y width. That's just too much data points. And I'm going to do this for 10 of each publisher, multi-man publishing through LFT, for both 5/8 inch and 1/2 inch counters. And I'm going to calculate an average and standard deviation. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to compare that to the average and standard deviation of multi-man publishing. And the closer the scores are to multi-man publishing dimensions, the higher the score that third-party publisher will get compared to multi-man publishing. Now, the way I'm going to rate these is whoever gets the highest rating for a particular category will get 7 points, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, because there are 7 publishers, and there can be ties. So if there are 2 that are clearly outstanding compared to the other 5, they will get scores of 7, and then that'll fall off from there. So there is a possibility of ties. In the end, I'll sum everything up. The publisher with the highest score, at least from my subjective rating, will be the winner and will have what I consider to have the best ASL counters. Again, your mileage may vary. You might like different things in your counters, and that's great. This is just one man's opinion, and we're doing this for nerdy fun, all right? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a sheet or 2 from each of the 7 publishers, starting with Multi-Man Publishing, something they published recently, if I have it, and look at these really quickly. Look at color, resolution, die cut, that kind of thing. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to punch 10 of each out from these sheets, evaluate how well they release, trim them, and then do the measurements, tabulate the data. And at the end, we'll take a look at the table. And again, like I said, we will have our winner and announcement at that time. As a special bonus, if you're still watching, remember to always watch my videos. You never know what you're going to get. By the time this publishes, we should hit 5,000 subscribers, which is amazing to me. I thought when we hit 4,000, it was amazing, but people keep subscribing and listening to me rant about ASL. But we should hit 5,000 about when this goes live. Somewhere in this video, there's going to be information on how to enter a drawing to win $50, a $50 gift certificate from Ritterkrieg. So you can order something from Ritterkrieg. You'll get a coupon code and you'll get $50 off whatever ASL product or any other product he has, Dice Towers, whatever, from Ritterkrieg in celebration of hitting 5,000 subscribers. Okay, so watch for that. I'm not going to say where it is. If you know where it is, don't post where it is in the comments below. Let other people figure it out, all right? So let's go ahead and jump into taking a quick look at all the counter sheets from the publishers, starting with Multi-Man Publishing. Before we jump into the other counters, I want to show you what we don't want to see. These counters are from my Pegasus Bridge box from 1997, I think. I never punched them because they are so god-awful. I cannot believe they even made it into a box. I cannot believe someone sat on the assembly line or the packaging line for Multi-Man Publishing or whoever they, not Multi-Man Publishing, for Avalon Hill, or whoever they had assemble their boxes, that this was actually put in a goddamn box. Let's take a look at this. Look at this trash. This is where we came from. You're going to see some counters that look much better than this. I don't have the heart to ever punch this because they're not even usable. I mean, they're usable. I just don't want to use them. If I play Pegasus Bridge, I'll just do it on vasl. In addition, they have the dreaded side sprues. So not only are they printed like absolute garbage, they have side sprues. So this sheet of counters will forever sit in the box unpunched. All right, let's move on to what Multi-Man Publishing is giving us today as opposed to what Avalon Hill sometime gave us in the past. All right, the gold standard here, Multi-Man Publishing from 2022. Here we have some US 5/8 inch counters. So let's get a quick close up of the vehicle counters. Everyone is used to Multi-Man Publishing counters, very simplistic. The design has been around for decades. It's black silhouettes on some nationality color background with the occasional red text in for special abilities, especially on vehicles. You can see here that Multi-Man Publishing might get docked a little bit for the die cutting, the centering on the die cut. We will see how that comes out in the wash in the end. You can especially see it on vehicle counters that have a turret indicator, the white square on this one. You can see that it is slightly off center. You can see it here as well. Let's see if we can get pretty good parallel die cutting on these, but it looks like it might be just slightly off center. Now here we have the infantry counters, even more simple than the vehicles. Now, not much has changed in the Multi-Man Publishing counters. The text, I think, over the years has gotten slightly bigger, and the clarity on the black printing has gotten much better than previous. Let's take a look at the back real quick. You can see the deformation from the die cutting. You cannot, I don't know of any way you can get rid of this as the die cuts through the opposite side. It's going to cause this deformation. You're going to see this on every sheet from every publisher. Let's take a look at the smoothness. Pretty smooth on the front. Get the reflection here from the lighting. You can see it's pretty smooth. That looks pretty good. Okay, so that's Multi-Man Publishing. gold standard of this comparison. All right, this is Advancing Fire. And Advancing Fire, they're new, pretty much new to the ASL publishing scene. They don't really specialize in counters. That's not what they do. They include counters with the modules, but they make some pretty sexy counters, if you ask me. You can see here the German vehicles have some shadowing going on, nice color on the vehicles, pretty good clarity. Centering is pretty good, at least on the turret indicator, turret circle on those. That's kind of how I check. Oh, that one is off quite a bit though. That Panzer 4H. I only have one sheet here because it has a mix of vehicles and infantry. There's some Russians. Centered pretty well. The centering is kind of hit and miss. You'd think if it was all squared up that they would all be off a little bit, but it's a little bit all over the place on some of these. Some are dead nuts on, some are off by quite a bit. Hard to tell, again, unless it has a turret circle on it. Infantry, looking pretty good. Color silhouettes. Strength numbers are a little bit bigger than Multiman Publishing, I think. They look good. How about the squareness of the die cut? Their first set of counters from Piazza Ridge were not good at all. This is interesting here. The half-inch counters have die cut deformation on the back. You can see it, but look at the 5/8. There's really hard to see. Maybe it's because the back is not, it's like a semi-gloss and it doesn't stand out as much. Down here, these are kind of glossy, and you can see the deformation from the die cut on the back. These are kind of matte or slightly glossed, and it's harder to see. So maybe it's an illusion. It's there, but it's harder to see, harder to pick up. That's actually, I never noticed that before. That's kind of cool. Oh, here you go. You can see it on these. These are kind of glossy and see the deformation. Yeah, so you can hide it a little bit if the backside is matte. Interesting. But yeah, Fancy Fire, at least on the surface. We'll get at the numbers and punching and all that later, but they make some pretty sexy counters, and they've come a long way in their production from Piazza Ridge to Orsonia, which was their latest one. I pulled these out of Prokhorovka. Okay. Bounding Fire Productions. They've been around a while. These counters are from 2017's Blood and Jungle module. Here we have the Japanese, has some vehicles and some fighter bombers and a few guns here. Let's take a look. The yellow looks pretty close to MMP yellow for the Japanese. Not that that is really that important. Surface finish, surface waviness, smoothness looks pretty good. Centering, let's get a close up here. Good printing, good color, fairly crisp. How about the centering? Let's find a vehicle with a turret. Not too bad, maybe a little bit shifted to the right. Not too shabby though. Let's look at the back real quick. Yep, standard die cut deformation. About centering on the back, kind of hard to tell, but it looks pretty good. Like I said previously, not that important, the centering on the back. You don't want it to be way out of whack, but you want it to be close. These look pretty good. But yeah, Bounding Fire makes some good counters too. Let's look at infantry here. What do we have here? We have a mix of Japanese, Axis miner, Allied miners, and what, Chinese, I guess. Centering, ooh, we're starting to drift here on the right. Bounding Fire is going to get docked for that. Again, at least on Blood and Jungle. I didn't cherry pick these. They are what they are. There may be sheets from other modules that look better than this. That's probably the case for everybody. So this is kind of just a random pull. Yeah, it's shifted to the right, or the die cut is shifted to the left. going to cost you some points. Bounding fire. Okay, let's look at the back. They use color silhouettes. No shadows. Go back to the vehicle like Advancing Fire had. Just a straight up crisp edge silhouette. Yeah, Bounding Fire. They've always made pretty good counters. I don't know if they're better than Advancing Fire. Advancing Fire's done a good job up in Newcomer, but Bounding Fire looks pretty good. We'll see what the numbers say at the end. And these are Broken Ground design counters. I did do a video a few weeks ago on these, more of a in-depth review. These are the Polish counters. I looked at, I think, the Japanese and Marines at that point. I'm using the Polish counters here because I believe they are more recent than the Marines and the Japanese that I looked at. And I think there are some improvements that were put into these over those, especially in the area of surface smoothness. Compared to the ones I looked at, the Japanese and Marines, these look much better. Or is the smoothness, surface smoothness? Ever so slightly perhaps off center from die cutting. Parallelism, which had problems in the Japanese and US Marine Corps sheets I had, which were older production. These look pretty good. Clarity, not too bad. The full color, not full color, but the color silhouettes, not as crisp, obviously, as black and white or black on color. My main complaint was the text of, especially vehicles and guns. It's so small. It's very hard to read. It is also on the back. Maybe it's slightly easier to read, but it's still, really, I'm zoomed in. It's really quite small to read what type of vehicle, the vehicle name it is. I believe the numbers and the type of gun or in vehicle, maybe the movement points and gun size, I believe those are slightly larger and easier to read than the Multiman publishing versions. But overall, pretty nice looking counter. Let's look at the infantry real quick. The text on these, the strength numbers on infantry units are definitely bigger and are definitely easier to read. Use color silhouettes. Surface smoothness, not bad. Centering, no, there's some infantry, probably a little bit worse than the vehicles we just looked at. Let's look at the back. Die cut deformation is there as usual. Centering on the back doesn't look a little bit, but maybe not as bad as front, which means the printing on the back or the laminating on the back is more in alignment with the die than the front. You're not looking at the back very often anyway. It's more important that you get alignment on the front, and you can see it. Yeah, it looks like the front's off a little bit more than the back. Okay, so that is Broken Ground design. In Broken Ground design, that's primarily all he does is counters. I think he has a few other products that he does. There are only 2 manufacturers in here that do just counter sheets you can buy that I know of. One is Broken Ground Design and the other is Critical Hit. Obviously, we know Critical Hit has lots more products, including modules, but you can buy counter sheets separately from them, just like you can Broken Ground Design. The other third-party publishers, I don't think you can buy just the counters. All right, let's move on to the next one. Okay, Critical Hit. Let's take a look at their counters. Now, the only counters that I've actually bought from them were these olive drab US that would supplement Omaha West and East and West module that I have from them because you need so many counters. So I bought sheets of just these olive drab. And then the module came with some sheets, and we'll get to those in a second. But let's take a look. Smoothness is good. It's pretty impressive. The sprues are huge on them. I can only imagine these are going to be a massive pain in the butt to punch out of a sheet. You might have to cut these out, which I don't look forward to. And it's hard to tell on this olive drab color, but they are colored silhouettes. Centering, at least on the infantry, it doesn't look too bad. Resolution, pretty good. Again, I don't know how old these counters are. I don't know when they were printed. See no date on here. Back, doesn't look too bad. Look pretty standard. Let's look at the 5/8 inch. Let's find a vehicle with a turret. Ooh, yeah. Okay, let's take a look at this one here, which is a ship, but it has a turret on it. I guess we could look at this vehicle here. The circle for the turret is nearly on the edge of the die cut, but on top, look how far away it is. And when you clip it, it's going to be way off center, even when you punch it out with these enormous sprues on here. So the centering on critical hit is, you can see it here on this bunker type counter, way off, at least on the 5/8 inch counters. Yeah, look at this. That's terrible. It's the text from this counter is actually on the lower counter, at least on that one. Not good, not good, critical hit. But people have been a little critical of critical hits quality over the years, and it kind of shows. Getting right up on the margin here. We'll see what these look like when I punch and trim them. Back. Yeah, bad. Got green bleeding over on white on this counter here, white bleeding over on green. Just shoddy counters, which, is unfortunate because Critical Hit literally sells counter bundles. That's supposedly what they do. And it's pretty bad. I'm not impressed so far with what I have seen. I've looked at these before, but now that I'm looking at them closer from this video, it's not looking good for Critical Hit. Okay, now let's take a look at, these are the ones that actually came with either the East or West module. I forget which one it comes with. The counters are interchangeable between the two. Now look at this. See anything different here? They're two different colors. ASL Comp, First Wave at Omaha. ASL Comp, First Wave at Omaha. They're American units, and here we have green, whatever color green that is, and here we have green, whatever color green. This is like a yellow green. That's more of a green green. They're two completely different freaking colors. They need to be, whatever color green you pick for your standard nationality, if it's different from Multiman Publishing's, make sure it's the same green that you use. Anyway, yeah, Critical Hit. We'll be interested to see what their final ratings are right now. It is not looking too good, but we'll see. We'll see in the end what it looks like. These are counters from Lone Canuck Publishing. Now, LCP Lone Canuck is not really known for their counters. They don't sell counters. They don't publish counters. There aren't many tactical missions or historical modules that he includes counters in. Königsberg is one of them. It has I think it had just one full sheet, and it is Germans and Russians. You can see the German color is slightly different than the MMP German color. The Russians are probably pretty close. Let's take a closer look. Let's look at the smoothness. Little bit of waviness. How about a zoom? And there are no 5/8 inch counters, I believe, in this module. Maybe I can dig through some of his other stuff. I don't think there are any 5/8. Maybe there are. I'll have to look closer, but they won't be in this video. About centering, pretty good. The sprues are fairly small size. These should trim up pretty nice. And you'll probably note by now that Multiman Publishing is the only one that uses black silhouettes. Everybody uses some form of color silhouettes on their counters. Centering is, yeah, pretty good. How about the die? Kind of the squareness. Not too shabby. Pretty good for, a publisher that doesn't really specialize in counters. Die deformation actually looks pretty good. Not too bad. There's a little bit there, but overall, much less than the other publishers. Other than the Advancing Fire ones, which the back had a matte finish, which kind of hid it, which was a kind of a neat thing. The counters are, they're a little plain looking, but they're actually made quite nice, to be honest. Lone Canuck Publishing, for someone who doesn't specialize just in making counters or including a lot of counters with his tactical mission historical type packs. Next up is LFT, the last on the list. Next up, we have LFT, and I have two sheets. I have one from the Green Hell of Einor and a sheet from LFT number 14, which has the Italians in it. Let's take a look at the Green Hell of Einor first. Take a look at the 5/8 inch smoothness. It's got a little small rippling, not big waves, just a little bit of rippling. Full color. They do use shadows on their vehicles, at least in this module. You can see it here on this M4A2. Centering, not good either. We got some blue bleeding on the green. It is off center. Some of the infantry color leaders. Yeah. Special unit symbol got cut right through the die. You can see here this die edge. I mean, they're separate parts of the tooling, but it's like a staggered. It's like different widths. You can see this counter is going to be a different width than that counter, and that's not what you want in physical components. You want consistent widths. And these look to be a little bit all over the place. LFT makes some pretty good stuff, but their counters are maybe middle of the road. We'll see. I mean, they look good, but again, this is all subjective. I'm nitpicking. This is just for fun. The counters look perfectly usable, but I'm here doing the dirty work for you ASL players. How about their LFT 14 Italian counters? Same thing, different direction. The conscript is getting awfully close. First line, awfully close to that corner. If you round these, I bet you lose that first line unit quality indicator on those. The box for elite right on the die cut. After going through these without crunching the numbers, I'm getting a general feel of kind of where it's going to fall out in the rating, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. So that's it for the quick look at all the counters. Maybe that was, I don't know, 5 minutes each. What I'm going to do next is we'll go through the ranking and rating table at the end, and I shall declare a winner. Again, just for subjective fun. That's it. That's all this is.